Welcome to JCon!
So, Richard, thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you for everyone who's coming out for the second day of JCon. This is actually my first JCon conference, and I couldn't be more excited and humbled by the turnout, the conversations, the networking that's happened here. It's pretty inspiring. And as Richard said early this morning, this conference is about people. So I see a lot of familiar faces in this audience, but I see a lot more unfamiliar faces in this audience. And that's important because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we're working on, it's who we are connected with that matters. And so as much as my career, actually next year I'll be celebrating my 24th year in the same role. I don't think many people can say they've been doing the same thing for that duration, but the entire thesis of my career has been focused on people. It's been focused on helping people do what it is that they are striving to do in software development. And I couldn't be more humbled in this role. It is a very rewarding opportunity and a career. And so you might have seen a lot of sessions today, first set of sessions this morning and yesterday, a full collection of sessions that went broad and deep in terms of the value of Java. This keynote is all centered on you, the community. It's about people. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of a journey before we start. Richard talked about where we get inspiration from. And earlier, Andres talked about how we can contribute in open source. Contribution is a human element. It's about people helping each other in different ways. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about where I get inspiration. That's me. That's my twin sister. She inspires me every day. She's my best friend, most trusted individual on this planet that I have, who inspires me every day to be a better person. And you might be saying, well, why are you showing me family pictures, Shar? And I'll say, well, this was taken back in 1976. Yeah, I'm a lot older than I look. Or maybe I do look old. I don't know. You tell me. And the reason why I'm showing this is in 1976 was the first time I ever traveled to Europe. And where did I come? I came to Cologne. And before I was doing this keynote, I was frantically typing my parents, calling them, asking them, do we have any photos from cameras? You know, the kinds that you had the film in and you pulled it and you had to take a picture and then send the canister away and they printed the film for you. They didn't have any. And I was gobsmacked. Like, we don't have pictures from that trip, but I do have the memories. I may not have the physical photo, but I have the mental images when we came to Cologne. I remember walking the plaza and walking by the cathedral, and I looked at the cathedral, and my sister and I were just standing there and we were walking. And when you stand against it, right against the wall, and you look up, it reaches the sky. It's large in scale. It has presence. It has density. It has emotion. And over the years, I started thinking about what it took to build that. From the designer, the architect, the masons, how they cut the stone, the assemblers, the woodworkers, the glassmakers, the maintainers. Coordinating something to do that takes time. It takes precision. It takes intricacies. And you don't get to fail on something of that scale. the tests you do have to be perfect, because if you want something of this magnitude to live on for generations, it has to have stability. It has to be able to evolve. And if you've ever gone to the cathedral, even though it's been built, many generations ago, it's been modernized for the era we live in to make it a bit more comfortable for our experience when we visit it. And so I looked at this going, this is an example of when coordination and precision and cooperation works. But in history, especially in the physical world, what happens when precision doesn't work? What happens when there isn't coordination? What happens when you haven't done all of the right things to ensure you've minimized the impact it does? And if you don't know what galloping Gertie is, go to your browsers, look it up, and there's many more examples of this same situation. But the Tacoma Narrows Bridge was built and constructed just prior to World War II. In 1940, it opened up. The inaugural drive across occurred. And on that day, if you've never been to Tacoma, Washington, there was a rather large breeze, wind, gale force wind, that came through the channel, came up towards the bridge, and it started to experience instability. It started to shake, it started to waver, and there's actually video of this. If you get a chance, I recommend you go look at what happened on that day. And as it's fluctuating, as it's buckling, as it's moving, the audience present, the press, the media, the celebrities, whoever were there, were just like wondering what is going to happen. And it snapped. It broke. And why did it break? Well, they did all of the research. They said, well, the architect did everything that possible in terms of the design. The metallurgy was of highest of quality. Back then, U.S. steel was considered some of the world's best. The girders were solid. The suspension ropes were solid. But why did it buckle? Now, if anyone here knows anything about aerospace engineering, you know about pitch, roll, and what's the third principle? Pitch, roll, and yaw. Thank you. I should know this because my father's an aerospace engineer. Gosh. Okay. Well, that bridge is essentially a wing. It's a fixed wing structure. And as the wind came up the channel, the aerodynamic principles of that bridge had not been tested. And this is a fundamental test most structures go through, is some sort of wind resistance test. And so the wind started to fluctuate on that bridge because it didn't have the right principles to maintain its stability, and the wind actually destroyed it. And there's a level of arrogance in this because the actual architects failed to understand they needed to do that type of quality testing, that level of precision, because something on this scale, we can see the harm, we can see the damage it does. It's visible to us. It impacts us. Lives were lost. And I think about in the physical world, what we can see where harm can happen if we aren't precise, if we aren't structured, if we aren't coordinated. But in the software world, it's kind of hard. Like all the devices we have, sure, there's software is running on it. It makes us productive. It allows us to have functionality and evolve our life in different ways, sometimes in ways we don't want it to. In fact, I refer to my phone as the wireless leash because it never leaves me and it drags me around. But we as software developers, we don't inherently see the impact, either positive or negative, a lot of times of our end users. We're so separated because it's not visible. Software is not something that's visibly tangible to us in many ways. It doesn't have a physical structure. It's just bits flowing on a computer. And oftentimes it's not just you involved, it's other teams. And so when your job is done, you've passed it on, you've forgotten about what that is that you've built and moved on to the next project. And in many ways, software development actually takes the human element out of what we do, because when we can't see our end user and the impact it has, we lose a connection to that individual or collection of individuals. And it can have very harmful repercussions. And this is if you've actually looked at our software industry the last 10-ish years, this mantra is one of the, I think, mantras that has led us down the dark path. When I first heard this quote, move fast and break things in software development, I kind of understood it. I think we all in general kind of understand it. But the problem is, this mentality takes the human element out of what we do. When we move too fast, what happens? Things are a blur. And if you've ever been on a train, I heard German trains are on time or not on time. I don't know. You tell me. But when they start moving, what happens? The train starts accelerating. And if you're looking out the window, immediately in your presence, everything is moving by you at such a rapid speed that it's a blur. You don't see what's happening. You have to physically take the action of looking past the window into the distance to see the scenery, to slow it down. So I understand the concept of efficiency and speed, but speed can sometimes be damaging. It can be hurtful. It actually makes you forget the end user. And the concept of breaking things, I don't like to break things. I like to evolve things. I like things to have stability and opportunity for growth. And this unfortunately has led us further away from end users, from people. We're taking the human element out of what we're doing. And it kind of leads to this. I don't know how many times I've heard this in my career, but it's more than I can count on two hands times 20, times 30, times 100. And the concept of get shit done is a further way to not just separate you from the end user, it also dehumanizes you. Because if you identify your work as shit, how much are you going to care about it? You're not. Your work is more valuable than that statement. I like to get value done. My work is not defecation. Your work is not defecation. And I got to tell you, even though I understand the concept of this, the reality is it's hurtful. It impacts people. It makes us less human. And we don't want that. We just don't want that. And what can that do? I'll give you a perfect example. Personal experience. That is Shar. That's me. Because someone didn't set a strong password in the Department of Motor Vehicles, this lady hacked the system, used a simple password, took my identification, took my money, took my humanity away. And luckily, she was caught. She's now serving a lifetime sentence because this was her third offense in the US. When you have 3 felonies, you're basically incarcerated for the rest of your life. But this was hurtful. When we don't think about what we're doing, when we set loose passwords that can be easily hacked, you're putting not just yourself at risk, you're putting end users at risk, just like myself. It took tens of thousands of dollars to recoup my sanity, to reduce the credit impact with her spending and creating credit cards in my name, in my family's name, depleting my bank accounts. This is reality. Just like the bridge broke, my life broke. It hurts. To this day, I still get emotional about this. Why? Why didn't that DMV agent set something stronger? And in the court case it came out, you can imagine what her password was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got to be kidding me. That's crazy. Anyway, real life experience, we as software developers have to think about what impact is it that I'm going to have on end users and people and myself and my work environment. And so, move fast and break things was a very popular topic at my father's dinner table when I used to fly back and forth from California to Washington, D.C. to go visit him and my mother. And my father, brilliant man, aerospace engineer, electrical engineer, worked at Boeing for when quality mattered. He was actually the lead aerospace engineer designer for the 777. He designed the wing on the plane. I never knew that. These are things he doesn't share. He's a very quiet man, humbled. He doesn't have to brag, and I'm very thankful for it. But at that dinner table, when we were talking about move fast and break things, he stopped the dinner and said, Shar, move thoughtfully and build things. It's his quote, not mine. I'm going to continue to borrow that for the rest of my life. And in that phrase, it summarized everything it is that we need to do as software developers. Move thoughtfully. The action of moving thoughtfully doesn't mean you break things. It means you break them less with less impact. You put thought into it before you actually take action. We're trying to minimize breakage. Build things. Again, build doesn't mean you won't have flaws. It means as you conceive this, you're trying to minimize the risk and maximize the opportunity. Thought is a human element. Thought means you have an emotion. Thought means you're taking action from your heart and from your mind together, and not just one or the other. And that's what we have to do as software developers. We need to move thoughtfully and build things. But we can't do that until we put people first. Again, another mantra, you might have seen this. This isn't mine. I've seen this many times over the last 20 years about people first, technology second. How can we do anything without first realizing who it is that we're trying to assist or help? Here in technology, oftentimes we do things because we can, but we don't question if we should. And we need to do that. And you might say, well, Shar, I'm just one voice in my company, and I have to make a livelihood. I get all of that. That makes complete sense to me. I'm not saying be a rebel or a cowboy and ruin your career, but thoughtfully think about whatever it is that you're doing in your environment, at your job, in your task. Think about the person first as you design your application, as you build the security, and as you build the innovation in. Does the innovation actually benefit the end user? Because innovation in of itself is not helpful. It can actually be dramatically hurtful. And I can give you plenty of examples of that. We can have beer over the happy hour, and I can give you that slew of examples, and I'm sure you have yours. But we fundamentally have to put people first. Then think about the technology and how to apply that technology. The challenge is, though, in our workplace, we oftentimes are dehumanized by the environment we're in. You are too. You are too junior. You are too inexperienced. You are too senior. You're not too anything. You are. But that too mentality builds a concept within us, and this has been scientifically proven, is you start to question yourself. I'm not. I can't. I won't. And you need to rephrase that. I live imposter syndrome almost every day. I've been working in the Java team since, I'll remember my start date, January 8th of 2000. And I've been working with some of the most knowledgeable, most talented Java developers on the planet. I will never, ever be able to reach and attain their ability, their skills, their aptitude. But it's not about trying to be someone else. It's about retaining who you are. And we don't talk about this enough in our field. We have enough pressure as it is in our work life, where it now enters our personal life, and the blend becomes very blurring. You don't know where to start and stop, especially now where many of us are now working from home. I've started to use the saying, I'm living at work. Now, I've been working from home since 2002, before the pandemic, well before it became the approach that we are now embracing in our modern world. But we have to have limits. We have to give the focus back to us before we can help someone else. And I'm asking all of you, take a break. Give yourself a chance to recharge. Re-identify with that I am and I can and I will. Say it to yourself. And it sounds silly that I'm even putting that up on a slide and advocating for it. But until you say it, until you embody it, it doesn't happen. And when you start having that level of confidence, guess what? When you approach that work, you're now thinking about people and then how to apply technology to help people. So many of us in this room, if you're a member of a Java user group or you lead a Java user group, can you raise your hand? Just curious. Very good. And keep your hands up, by the way. Included in that, if you are a recognized Java champion, Luminaries in the Java industry who have been helping people, raise your hand as well. Okay. And any mentors in this room? Teachers? Okay. A fair number of you. I bring this up because we are so lucky as Java developers to have a technology that at its roots in 1996 was foundationally about people. The way I got into this industry was about people. I was lucky enough to go to Java 1, the first one in 1996. My boss dragged me along. I'm like, what is this conference about? Coffee? No. You sort of learned about it there, and then I started to learn more and more and realized by networking with other peers, sharing information, I could become a better champion of this technology through the lens of helping people. And so part of my job, sometimes I teach at night, the teacher mentality is to not just educate the student, but to help them achieve their goals. It's almost like you're a Sherpa. My responsibility, those who had their hands raised, their responsibility is to help you attain and reach your summit. And that doesn't mean they are going to carry the full load for you. It means they're going to help support you by offloading some of that weight, some of that gravity, some of that resistance, some of that burden, and show you a path so you can then put in the energy to get to your summit. And that fundamentally is what we're trying to do in the Java communities, ultimately help all of you reach your respective summits. And I've been thankful to have been doing this role for next year 24 years. I can't believe that I get to help you. That in itself is a reward. And so some of the conversations we've had in the Oracle booth, in the Java booth, in the GraalVM booth, in the Oracle database booth, the conversations first started about your situations, your hardships, your challenges. And then we started weaving in the topics of technology, how it can address some of that. And then, of course, there's other conversations that had nothing to do about technology. Because the more I know about you, the more you know about me, the more we can coordinate together and understand there's common ground, even if we have differences. So going back again, like I said, my father's a brilliant man. He really is. Why didn't I listen to him when I was younger? I don't know. It's a good question. I wonder that all the time. But in terms of that learning process, even us who are here to help you, whether you're a teacher or a jug leader or a Java champion or an educator, we also have to realize ourselves, just like all of you, is we can learn more. We need to take the time to do that. Humanize that for yourself, because guess what? Your skills just don't increase or get better or more refined in the absence of effort. It doesn't. And when my father said this, I think I was about 8 years old. I was a terrible student, by the way, when I was younger. He said, Shar, and my sister Sarita, you know less than you know. I'm like, wow, I know less than I know. Is he saying I'm stupid? No, he's not saying that. He never said that. He said, it doesn't matter how much you retain in terms of knowledge, there's always something new you can still continue to learn. And that's what we need to strive for. A quote I wish I had put up here, but I'll repeat it for you anyway, is, don't strive to be an expert, seek expertise. And I love that line. In that embodies that if you are an expert, the reality is, what else do I need to know? I've attained everything. So let me chase expertise versus being an expert. The title, I got to tell you, it doesn't define as much. So let's think about it in that lens. And so please continue to strive to invest in yourself, because at the end of the day, we're responsible for ourselves before we can help anyone else. So how do we do that? Here on the Java team, we're reinvigorating our Java advocacy team. It's not just about content creation to help you learn, and as much as that is important, we want you to learn, we also want you to share. And not just share your best practices or use cases, but share your vulnerabilities. What challenges you? What are your fears? What are your uncertainties? What are your doubts that are either work-related or even sometimes personal? Face it, like a lot of what we do is at a personal level. The more we can understand each other, the more we can settle our differences so we can get to common ground and work. And that's when you reach the state of collaboration. What has given Java so much life? It's not just because the Java team has been working on it for almost, what year is next year? 30 years of Java? It's not just because we have that institutional knowledge. It's because you share in that participation with us. It's because you give us information. It gives us ideas. And that's important. The more we collaborate, guess what? We then give a path for Java for the next 30 years. And that's what we need to do. Because fundamentally, I look around the room, there's some of you like me. When we age out, we need to hand that baton off to a very strong generation. And I want to make that path as smooth as possible for them. So let's collaborate together. So I say this. As you work on your projects, as you think about your workload, as you think about the next big thing, I'm stealing someone's quote. Someone famous said that, right? I don't know. The next big thing. Wait, there's more. Someone said that too. Is focus on the human element. Focus on that pulse that connects us together. And I got to say, despite all of our differences, and I love our differences, differences are good. But we need to ensure that there's a way that we have to collaborate. And collaborate comes from that concept of being thoughtful and building. So with that, I ask all of you today, as you leave, move thoughtfully and build things. Thank you.